Today I want to talk about one of the most important sketchbooks, tattoo sketchbooks to be more precise, I ever got into my collection. The sketchbook title is How the Gods Kill, and it's basically an artwork of Dusty Neal. This book was released in 2009 and it starts with the words, "This is a collection of work from 2007-2009 and it's intended to be as much of a collection as it's a book of reference. Feel free to take inspiration, but always remember to add your own ideas and style when doing so." I don't remember exactly where did I buy this book. I assume it was one of the London Tattoo Convention that I participated every year, but I do remember that I bought this a long time ago. I wouldn't be surprised if it's around the time when it was released. Why I do believe it's one of most important tattoo sketchbooks in my collection? Well, there is a couple of reasons. First, 15 years ago, when I started tattooing, I remember it was a very specific time for tattoo industry. First of all, there were a massive burst of newcomers into the tattoo industry, and I'm not going to deny I was one of them, but before that time, it happened only because publication of TV, programs like Miami Ink and stuff like everyone wanted to be a tattoo rock star, And I remember that time, before that time, I was afraid to become a tattooist, to have a direct contact with the human skin. I was afraid to touch skin. I was glorifying human body that much, then I was just scared. But that time made me thinking, hold on a second, if everyone can do it, why I shouldn't? And in that time, a lot of people were following shortcuts and going straight into old school tattooing, I never been a fan. I never been a fan of any classic form of tattoos, either old school, traditional, neo-traditional. For me, it was a kind of lazy, drawing with the marker pen over the tracing paper, and that's it. Job is done. And from all these kind of semi-classic styles, I would say the new school was something that was very interesting for me always. Maybe because it was much more creative, where the manipulation of the line defined completely different characteristics and stuff like this. Where the classic styles were more limited, not only by line work, but also by the way how everything was colored and stuff like this, or generally the form. Not to mention that everything was very boring if it comes to the subject matter, the same things all the time. The cabbage rose has its name for a reason, The new school was good for me because it was breaking all those principles. However, at some point it became a little bit cringy because it became a little bit too cartoony, which I found very childish at some point. So at the time when everybody was into old school or into classic tattoo, I not necessarily found this interesting. But again, I wouldn't want to criticize the whole genre from the anthropological view. Every society, smaller or bigger, every art movement, every genre, every style, it's breaking into two sections when the vast majority of representatives are just collectivists. Even when we call them individuals, not necessarily every individual is individualist. That's completely two different aspects. And for me, I always, no matter what kind of style or genre or art movement, I was always trying to follow the people who are original, the people who break the standards, and the people who definitely define completely different forms that the standard rules and principles do. So when I started collecting sketchbooks, I remember technically every old school sketchbook was the same. It was all the same, cabbage looking like roses and stuff like this, anchors and whatever. You could literally change the name and everything stayed the same. I didn't find this interesting at all, completely. It was just as boring as today when you look at the abstract and everyone just mimic each other and everyone just do exactly the same thing all the time. there is not enough originality, I would say. However, when I grabbed this specific book into my hand, I remember my reaction because it was a total mind blown, especially that something that I'm not necessarily ignored, but I wasn't a fan of, was shown to me in a completely different dimension. So what Mr. Dusty Neal did, he combined every single possible classic style, old school, new school, traditional, neo-traditional, into one piece, and somehow he came up with his stylized on previously present aesthetics, and that was incredible. I would compare this to cooking. He's just like a master chef where all the ingredients that he used, old school, new school, traditional, neo-traditional, and he cooked like this dish. Somehow, with his sense, it works and it provides completely different standards. What's really also fascinating about this book doesn't only shows flashes for tattoo work, but is also a collection of illustration, graphic design, painting, and so on. And each part of this book has completely different standards. I always was a fan of eclecticism because I do believe that when everything has been done, the only way to do something different is to combine in something from the different genres, different movement. There is a one problem because most of the people who do it, they don't have a sense, they don't necessarily have the form of taste where to do it right, and the outcome usually it's not necessarily settling in a high standards. However, here with this book, every single part of this, no matter if it's paintings, if it's illustration, if it's a tattoo design, has completely different style. So if I would separate this book into the chapters, you probably wouldn't even recognize that is done by one person, which is even more fascinating to me. But each section of this book show certain standards. So for example, paintings are done how the paintings should be done, the illustration are done how the illustration should be done. Everything follows different standards, and you can see how the imaginary follow completely different standards being present at the to whatever was present at the time, which is also fascinating to me. I don't know much about the Mr. Dusty Neal. I have a feeling like he lives in the shadow. Maybe I'm wrong. However, definitely after 15 years of having this book, it's still one of my favorite in my book collection. And as you can see, I have a few books, so that's why I would say it's special. As you can see behind me, I have a few books, and in spite of that, I would still consider this one as one of the most important sketchbooks I ever purchased in my life. Not like my book collection only contains tattoo sketchbooks, I have a few. However, yes, in this particular way, it's very important. As far as I'm concerned, unfortunately, it's sold out. You can find it sometimes on the market, and if you will ever have a chance, please put your hands on this because it's incredible. It's just a beautiful piece of artwork.